Well, first of all, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I wanted to, before I ask you specifically about The Impossible, I just wanted to ask a question that always is on my mind. Do you remember when you first acted, even just for fun? And also, do you remember if there was a moment when you knew, or after which you knew, that this is what you wanted to do for the long haul? Was there that kind of a turning point?
I remember that when I was a little girl, yeah, but I didn't know that acting was a job or anything. I just knew that it was fun to play pretend. I remember that being in school plays and feeling that. But it took me a while to work out that it was a paying job.
and on, I guess, in relation to that discovery, was there sort of a break before coming over to the U.S., like in Australia, that you regarded as your big break?
Oh yeah, I mean, I came over to well, first I moved from England to Australia, and then that's when I started with acting classes and stuff, even though I'd done school plays in England, and that's when I understood the world of play pretend. Then I went to acting classes, and then I did some movies, but very few. Then I was, as all Australians do, and when you get enough money in the bank, you go on the road. And America was the first stop, and I had some contacts, and I called and met up with those people, and they were all overwhelmingly positive. Little did I know it was, smoke and mirrors, really. It wasn't really like, I mean, they were saying, oh, you should come here, and da, da, da. So I went back and packed up my life and came back here, and then it was 10 years.
And I read in one of the articles I looked over to before this that you had initially said you're going to give it 5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I always like to keep my life on a 5-year plan. We can reinvent it.
Right.
But I try to keep it like that. Yeah, and I had little things along the way that kind of kept hooking me in. Each time I thought, this is too much, I can't take it, I've got to quit, I would get some opportunity, and it seemed like it came with promise, but didn't work out. So it was Mulholland Drive. That's sort of the marking point of my career, despite the fact that I had been going at it and working hard to get to the place. It was a good 10 years before Mulholland Drive, and now since then it's about 10 or 12. Yeah.
How would you say in the immediate aftermath of Mulholland Drive things changed? What was the sort of obvious implications of it?
Well, I'd say that first night in the Grand Palais in Cannes when it screened, and there was a standing O, which I've learned, you can get a standing O often, but that time it felt very, very big. And there were a lot of people really looking at me in the eye very closely. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I couldn't get a handshake before, much less eye contact. And then the phone started ringing. I remember this. Todd McCarthy wrote an insane review. In the
positive.
Yeah, just beyond, like a love letter.
And that
him and David Lynch, I have a lot to thank them for, because that's when the phones really started ringing, because people weren't necessarily at all at that screening, but they read that review and then heard the buzz on the film, and then agents were calling other directors and stuff like that. So that was sort of.
In the 10, 11 years since then, the one thing that you have done, one of the things that you've done very well that not a lot of people do is sort of navigate between big movies and smaller movies where, I think The Ring, I don't know if you knew going in how big that was going to be, but...
No. I mean, there's never any telling, is there?
Yeah.
You never know when it's going to be a great film. I can tell immediately if it's not going to work. And that's happened maybe 2 or 3 times since the Mulholland Drive part of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And even in this case, in The Impossible, I think it's a really well-made film. I think Juan Antonio has done an incredible job. Whether audiences will receive it or not is a big question that we cannot tell. We don't know what people are ready for.
And it often has nothing to do with the movie. It's the release date. It's the
exactly,
thing.
the timing, everything. Yeah.
Interesting. But so this one feels somewhere like, to me at least, in the middle of there's the really big ones, the King Kongs, the Rings, that kind of thing, and then the smaller ones, Fair Game and Eastern Promises and stuff. But this feels like you can't quite categorize it, because I mean, I know it had it was a huge undertaking, but it doesn't feel like it's not a packaged movie. It's not you're not going to have action figures come out of this one. But for you, how did you, I mean, did you going into it know it was a 7-month ordeal and all of these other things?
No, it ended up being longer than it should have been, because we got hit with the worst weather in like 50 years or something.
Wow.
It was like the rains were just torrential every day. I mean, sometimes we could only use 2 hours of a day because we were just sitting waiting.
And where was this? This
in
was
Thailand.
It was, okay. So how so much of this, so much of the power of the movie is that it all looks so real. How having done movies like King Kong or things like that, where it's really clearly, it's CGI, but it's believable. What was the degree of CGI versus reality on this one?
Well, there was really, I mean, you'd have to ask Juan Antonio, but there was little to none. I mean, everything that was shot in the water was in the water. We were in the world's second largest water tank in the world, and they created these machines that would be a wave machine. You sat in this, you anchored yourself into this kind of giant oversized flower pot, and you were going this way, the wave was coming this way, then they had pumps from the side, and they had, then they threw in the debris and the garbage, so you were really in that sort of current. So, we had lines of dialogue, but we couldn't speak, because every time you open your mouth,
I was going to say,
water went in, words didn't come out, and so that was all real, and I can't imagine trying to do that on a green screen.
Right.
It just going. It just would have been crazy.
Was it actually? Did you ever feel
and then,
it?
Then the wave. Sorry, I was just going to say
please.
The wave they did with models.
Oh, I see. I see.
So a lot of it, I mean, it was all real. There was the effects of very minimal, if there are, any at all. And the sets, again, when we would go on the sets, each time we would change environment, now we're going through the, what do you call it, the reeds, or and then you go into the area where you get to the tree, and, there were water pools, and then just wreckage, and just the most incredible detail in terms of the production design that just sort of anchors you and makes you realize, oh wow, this is what happened. This is really what people were seeing and feeling and living through.
When you first heard about the film, I just wonder, how could this have been captured in a script, like on paper? How did you know? I don't know of many projects like this where, like you're saying, it wasn't CGI, where it comes out looking so frightening and believable. Generally, when you look at a script, is that always the biggest consideration, or do you sometimes say, I just have to have faith in this director who I have been impressed with, or want to work with this actor who I've been impressed with in the past? Like, what is the equation generally, and then with this one?
Well, I think the filmmaker plays a big part in, like, if you believe that they can take on a story like this. And with Juan Antonio, his film The Orphanage was something that was, to me, very impressive. I think he handled tension really well, and obviously the actors within the drama were fantastic. And but this was this was a massive undertaking, no matter what, working with children and water, two difficult things.
Right.
But the story was true, and their connection to the story was really true, because it was told through Maria's perspective, and she was there and available and incredibly useful to me, and I just felt these guys, the filmmakers, how connected to the story they were, and sometimes they got, the story was leading the filmmaking rather than the filmmaking leading the story.
just a follow-up to that, what can you, as you look back at the films that you've been a part of, are there some that others that you did sort of go into just on, I'm not saying, I don't, just sort of on the faith of in the director without necessarily having seen a finished script or loved anything?
Yeah, well, Alejandro Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I said yes to him before reading 21 Grams,
Really?
and then reading it was like, a kid in a candy shop.
Right.
It was just such a brilliant script. But he came to meet me when I was shooting The Ring, and I guess he basically asked me to do it based on my work in Mulholland Drive.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't ask me to audition or anything, and I was nervous about meeting because Amores Perez I loved, and I thought, oh great, and he insisted on coming to the set, and that day I was shooting in the well and I looked horrible, and I thought, oh god, this isn't good, and I can't change the way I look because in 10 minutes I've got to go back on the set.
Right.
And little did I know it was perfect.
Right.
But I said yes to it. He said, I want you to do it, and I said yes right away.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then again with Peter Jackson, obviously I knew the King Kong story,
Right.
but I hadn't read the script.
They've earned your trust, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah,
exactly.
Just a side note, I guess your Oscar nomination for 21 Grams, part of what where I write, we focus a lot on, for better or worse, the awards related stuff, and I just wonder, at that time, what did that nomination mean to you? And does an Oscar itself, the possibility in the future for this or for something else, is that exciting, or or some people say awards don't mean anything to me, whatever? But I don't know if I completely believe that.
No, you can't really buy it, can you? But I mean, it's to me the biggest thing you dream for is that the movie works, and that people, when people say to me, oh, I saw the movie and I wanted to go home and hug my kids, I feel really, really proud, and that means we accomplished something. But yeah, of course, to be recognised by your peers, that's great. That feels good, But it's just daunting when people put that thought in your head, because the minute someone says it to you, you think, oh, it just makes you slightly crazy. But of course, it would be wonderful, but. I've been doing this for a while now, so I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket.
Right. And then just the last thing was, if you had quit, let's say before Mulholland Drive, when you say that you were weighing that possibility, where do you think you would be? What do you think you would be doing right now? Just
no
hypothetical.
idea. I have no idea. I mean, I'm pretty sure I would be a mum.
Yeah.
Because that's something I always wanted. So I don't know. Maybe I'd be just a mum, or doing something, a job with travel. I don't know. I wasn't really qualified to do anything, and I loved this too much. I loved the acting thing. I was bitten by it very young and couldn't just deny it. I tried to.
Well, lucky for us. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.